Hey guys, Prayer Islander here. We're in the off season now. I've wrapped up my hunting for the year. Ocean fishing's been wrapped up for some time now, and when you get into the off season, you kind of sit back, you reflect a little bit on your year, the highlights, the lowlights, and some of the stuff that worked and some of the stuff that didn't. And one of those things that a lot of times you'll sit back and reflect on is the gear you used. And this year I incorporated inline lure camera into my fishing arsenal, especially with my kayak fishing. And I kind of wanted to do a little review video, kind of talk about it a little bit, because I didn't find there was a ton of information on lure cameras when I was doing my research. And I kind of wanted to just go over it and go through my experiences using a device, and give them my experience, the pros and cons, and maybe that's useful for somebody else who wants to maybe try something else down the road. So the device I'm talking about today is the Aqua Strike View HD lure camera, and it's a device I picked up earlier this summer. Now, just to get it out of the way, I have no financial disclosures. I'm not sponsored by AquaView. I make no money off of sponsorships of any kind at this point. So realistically, this is just me giving God's honest review through my experience through using it. And I picked up this little unit for about 130 bucks off of the Cabela's online store. Had it shipped to my local store here in Nanaimo and picked it up. And it kind of comes just as is. It's this little black torpedo right here with its wire fastenings at the end, and it's fully sealed and waterproof. It has no buttons. Everything is self-contained. There's no buttons. The memory's inside. The battery's inside. The only thing that's on here is you got your little metallic fastener out over here, and that's where essentially that's the sensor for letting it know when it's in water to activate the camera and turn it on. And it's also your hookup with a little magnet cord, so you can hook up to a USB for charging, or for when you're going to look at your files on the computer there. So it comes pretty simple. Like one of the things right off the bat is it's very simple, easy to use. You tie it onto your main line over here. I use 50-pound braid when I'm doing my bottom fishing, and I believe they usually said they recommend like 65-pound braid plus, like some high quality, high pound test braid, because you want something that's going to be strong to hold this unit on there. And then you have your receiving end over here where you're going to put your leader down to your hook, or whatever you're going to be having for taking a look at what you got on the bottom there, or if you're trolling, your leader leading out to your spoon or your bait setup. So unit's very simple to use. You tie it up, you put it down. Water activates the water sensor here, and I can actually demonstrate that by just putting a little bit of water on there, and we should start getting the nice blue light letting us know we're recording. And there we go, we're live. So we got some action. So it will continue to record in 3-minute videos. So it'll do that for all 32 gigabytes of video that it has in its internal memory there, which ends up being about 4 hours or so of footage. So you can get about 4 hours of footage out of her before she completely fills up. Battery wise, I believe the battery's advertised to last a little longer. It doesn't really matter, because once you're full of memory, there's nothing else being recorded anyway. But it's pretty consistent. Like, I never had the battery die on me without me having full storage of my video footage there. So I was always able to max out my footage and capacity regardless. So the battery was never a problem with it there. So once you get it rolling there, to get it off, you dry the sensor, you pointer skywards there, camera end pointing up, and it should give us a few flashes, and camera's turned off there. So, works pretty good, especially when we're in here in a nice dry apartment and everything's dry. Out in the water, one thing that was a little bit of a negative is that I found it's really hard to turn this sucker off, because once you pull it out of the water, the whole thing's wet and soaking. You're a little wet and soaking sometimes, depending on what the conditions are like, or even on a dry, like sunny day, there's always a little bit of moisture. And if any moisture is on that sensor, it is going to end up activating and turning back on. So I found I had quite a bit of footage, on days if I took it out and was going to try to turn it off and not use it for a while, I'd have a lot of footage of it pointing somewhere up in the sky or pointing somewhere in the boat. So one thing I found with it is that, when you start using it, plan on using it for about 4 hours, because you're going to get your 4 hours of footage out of it, but it's hard to turn it off sometimes, especially when you're kind of in the heat of the boat and heat in the moment, essentially that way. When it comes to use at the computer there, the cord that it comes with is just your standard, USB on this side, but then you got your little metallic or a magnetic, I guess, clip on there. So it connects on just like this. You plug it in, And when you plug it in, if you have it just into a standard like phone charger USB, it's going to charge up really well that way. If you plug it in your computer, you can review the files. I don't think it charges while you're in a computer looking at the files. I don't think there's quite enough current to pass through. So that one thing you want to make sure is that you plug it into the wall afterwards so you actually get your full charge for the next day. One thing about the internal memory being that it's all enclosed and you can't pop new memory out is that if you're going for a weekend, you do got to delete all of your memory off of there, because if you don't, well, then you're going to have some problems, because you're going to be, half your footage is going to be filled up and you won't get as much the next day. So when I would take it up for a weekend up to our fishing cabin, I'd review all the footage after the day of fishing, delete it all so I had an empty USB memory and just ready to rock for the next day. So when it comes to using it, application wise, bottom fishing was how I kind of started, and super useful for that, because not only do you see the structure that you're fishing around, you also get to see what's down there. Like, for example, one day I went out, had a few bites, but I wasn't really having a lot of success, and I thought, all right, well, I'm gonna go try a different spot the next day for my kayak fishing out here in the local Nanaimo area. And then when I looked at the footage, holy crap, there was life down there. There was tons of fish and lots of curious fish, but my presentation just wasn't really attracting them. So then it made me change up my strategy a little bit the next day, and I ended up having some success catching a couple lingcod, catching some dogfish, some rockfish. So the key is that it lets you know what's down there that you would never know otherwise, like whether it be the fish that are down there, the structure, the appearance of it, what things look like, but also stuff like if you're reeling in, you have no idea if something's following you up there, what it looks like. These kind of situations that can sometimes arise, and I found that to be super useful, because like I had salmon that would follow me up after I was bottom fishing. I had fish literally chasing the lingcod that I'd be reeling up there, and being like, holy crap, you never know that stuff was happening until you actually see it with the camera. When it comes to trolling, pretty cool footage when it came to trolling there. I actually trolled it with it behind my kayak, just like setting it up and having it roll out the back, and would have some schools of salmon come by there. Had a couple of hits that way, but I never actually caught anything on my kayak trolling. But when it comes to fishing out of the boat, we got a fishing cabin on the west coast of the island, do the majority of our salmon fishing out there. And that's where you really see some pretty cool stuff. Like we had fish following, we had, some hits. We caught, some really nice ones, and actually, caught a 17-pound Chinook salmon on the device. And that was just, an absolute highlight, because we were just talking about how we haven't got anything big on the camera. I caught a few small fish, but nothing big. And that was a great way to kind of cap off my salmon fishing for the year. One thing about this camera, it's rated to a depth of about, I believe, 98 to 120 feet or so. You can go deeper. Like I did go deeper, probably to 150 feet with it. But what kind of becomes a limiting factor is your lighting. So, the deeper you go, the less light you get, the harsher, the images kind of are, which just makes sense. For a camera, it needs light for you to be able to see anything. When you get down so low, with the glow-in-the-dark lure at 150 feet, all I could see was the lure. You couldn't actually see the bottom of the fish or anything that's down there. And your conditions do make a difference too. If the water's really dirty, if it's not really clear, you're gonna have a harder time seeing. A cloudy, overcast day, not gonna be quite as good for the penetration. So you can kind of see when we first started, fishing out with like 68 to 97 feet on a cloudy day, you don't see quite as well, versus when you switch that over to say fishing at 27 feet on a bright sunny day, much different image quality. I found that with trolling for salmon, 37 to 27 feet was kind of the sweet spot for getting really nice quality video. You still got good stuff going deeper, like to 47 to 67, but you just didn't get the same kind of quality to the vision of it. And obviously too, when you hook it up for salmon fishing, way better just a straight line it. I actually started off by putting a flasher on it there, and then you can see how it looks here when the flasher's on. The whole thing's jerking all over the place there. Kind of hard to watch camera footage when it came to it. By just having a dummy flasher off to the side with just the straight line on the camera there, that's where I found like the best video quality kind of came for this there. So bringing it back into not letting this review go too long, my final thoughts on the camera are that really cool, useful device. One of the pros, costs $130. Like for fishing, you can spend a lot of money on a lot of different things. I found I got my value out of this camera within a couple weekends, because it was just so fun to deal with and easy to use that way there. I really like the ease of use, super easy to use there, very entry level. Like you don't need a lot of knowledge and need to be super techy to kind of get use out of it that way. What does become a little bit of a con with it is that, the internal memory and not being able to access any of the files unless you plug into a computer. It would be nice if there was a way you could wirelessly connect to the sucker so you could look at the videos on your phone, see what things are going on, like when you're actually out fishing doing it, not just waiting to the end of the day to check. But again, for a $130 device, at the end of the day, basic features is probably what you're going to get with it. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed using this throughout the fishing year. I had some success with it, caught some fish, saw a lot of cool things. And if I was talking to anybody who wants kind of the same thing that I was looking for, which is just an entry level camera, test things out, see how things look, and maybe get some like cool stuff for a YouTube video or just seeing what's down there. I think the Aqua View Strike View HD camera absolutely fills all the needs when it comes to that, and I think would be a really cool addition to your fishing arsenal when it comes to the technology side of it. So hopefully that review is a little bit helpful. If got any questions, hey, leave a comment. I'm happy to answer. I'm an open book with this kind of stuff. And yeah, Aquaview, get at me. I ain't sponsored. What are you doing? Get over here. Thanks for tagging along, guys.